The real cause of human suffering lies in the lack of education about the ego and how it controls our perception without ever being detected. None of us are born with an ego or fictional social mask. It is unconsciously learned, a social construct that is built into the fabric of how we see, think, speak, feel, and behave. Human suffering is holding on to the ego's false narrative that we are powerless, somehow defective, limited, and disconnected beings from each other and the universe as a whole. So much of our response to what is wrong in the world we live in is really a way to attack the symptoms rather than to deal with the root cause itself. These symptoms can take the form of ruthless corporations, the military, economic disparities, religious wars, racial conflict. Our ego-based identity rushes to protect our sense of survival. In this way, we push aggressiveness, competition, hate, anything to establish dominance. We do this by our loyalty to our egoic programming, out of fear of losing security, a sense of belonging to a particular group. We see ourselves as islands rather than one whole continent. Systematic egotism is a mind virus that dominates all areas of activity, from marketing, sex, labor, law, science, religion, politics, and education. Egotism has a strict code of conduct that is downloaded in our minds when we are not consciously aware. And this is done under the guise of this global network. A set of rules, policies, and regulations that this ego game can thrive on. Each of us live by, for, and of this left brain dominated code. We are all decoding vibrational information into a limited, fractured reality in the same way as everyone else. We are all instructed to use the same code of language, following trends, buying a certain type of house, car, having a type of idealized partner, anything to lock us into this narrow band of frequency, all to strengthen collectivism with the goal of being a successful member of the ego club. The ego is the father of classism, racism, sexism, capitalism, hedonism, materialism, and so on. Make no mistake that this world has been run by ego supremacy. It is the matrix code that has infiltrated all activities of our human experience. It is the false world that has covered over the natural world, causing chaos, destruction, and suffering. All people since time immemorial adhere to this narcissistic program without ever being aware of it. And this locks us into a disconnected sense of self. I versus other. Black versus white. Religion versus science. Nation versus nation. We must be educated about the ego, how it works, and the controlling hold that it has over our minds. The most insidious form of egotism is structured egotism, which is the toxic mind virus that has infected the institutions that we are all connected to. It is this social construct that has been built into the global power structure that was thriving in the world long before you were even born. Egotism always has the incumbent advantage over our minds. For when we were born with a blank slate, we had to get all of our cues from the people that we had trusted. Our parents, our teachers, our television, our employers. All that has been put in place to show us how to behave, how to play by the rules and survive in this society. These were certain norms and standards that were established before you even had a chance to express or articulate yourself from the reference point of self-reflection. Egotism is the DNA that has been built into the institutions all around us. It is there when we pay our taxes, when we shop, or go to work. It is there when we're spending time with friends and family. It is an invisible prison for the mind. And you cannot remedy egotism simply with a band-aid and an aspirin. Only when you are conscious about the egoic program, then you have the possibility of having mastery over it. All people around you are infected. Everyone is plugged into the ego matrix and are oblivious to their true nature. Parents, media, the government, social networking are all devised to keep the body-mind units operating from the sunken place of unconsciousness. In other words, operating from only 10% of their conscious mind. People only use 10% of their conscious potential, while the 90% is unconscious, untapped, and unexplored. If you do not consciously think for yourself, others will be doing the thinking for you, and technology will take care of the rest. It is important to understand that the Matrix is at war with its citizens. The reason why every war has been fought in world history was to take something that the other side had. Bigger narcissistic egos influenced by power, money, greed, fame. Their task is to manipulate and exploit smaller egos. Those are the pawns in the chess game. This is achieved when you first accept your sense of self is intensely attached to the body you were born in. In other words, your pure I am essence is now identified with the vehicle, the avatar that you use to function and experience and survive in this world. We start off by saying, I am this, or I am that. That is mine. We start to place ownership and association with objects. This is why young children, when their toy or something that they value is somehow lost or damaged, they immediately get emotionally triggered and upset because they have identified with it. This also comes into our adult life with houses, people, cars, our race. And you can see this throughout history, how people have strongly held on to their sense of identity. And when it is threatened, they will do anything to protect it. Once the ego is developed from I am the body, I am my given name, I am my race, and you can see this false sense of separation eventually start to turn into entitlement. It creates self-importance. And we are all seeking assimilation into the system, to be a part of it. And in our minds, this decreases our sense of invalidation. We stay within the crowd and choose to submit to the structured worldview that is imposed by the controlling egos. We then normalize our unconscious behaviors. The ego does a very successful job in conquering and controlling the minds of others. This is done through having our focus on our self-image, where we compete, compare, and dominate to be at the top. The ego is always 10 steps ahead of your conscious mind. And since our minds govern our perceptions of reality, thus controls our universe, bigger egos can control the will and actions of having smaller egos bend to the will. Make no mistake about it, this is an act of war. And war is deception. And deception is war. Plugged in humans in this neural active simulation are unconscious commodities that the Matrix moves about in this chessboard polarity game in a precisely controlled fashion. Every move is strategic. People have a set number of pre-programmed responses to any given circumstance within the Matrix. This is having the illusion of choice or free will for your false identity. We, functioning from personhood, are merely acquiescing to the fully interactive dream world. Human egos are a social fabrication. Like paper money, by consensus agreement, has value. Human personalities are nothing but straw men. They are just arrangements of thoughts, emotions, habits, and reactions, rigged with the goals of narcissism, one-upmanship, the need to feel superior or to feel inferior, wanting and having material things, drama participation, and so on. Everyone participating exhibits different combinations of reactive behaviors driven by the ego's unquenchable thirst for superiority and survival. They're fixed on an endless feedback loop, copies of thoughts borrowed from the instructional data of the Matrix system. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing everyone that it didn't exist. The devil is simply just a metaphor for the carnal mind. This is why everyone is in denial. We think that the world's problems are caused by our government, ruthless corporations, religions, our educational system, media, politicians, racism, but they are only mere extensions under the influence and power of egotism. They are deflections to pacify our minds, to keep us distracted on the outer appearance of things. We must not deny the source of these projections. Allowing this ego program to be replicated within our minds will keep us locked into fear and desire, pain and pleasure, and we will be oblivious to our true source of power, that is love. Every time we are locked in ego consciousness, we are operating from unawareness, from the conditioned state, no longer capable of making wise choices, no longer capable of listening to the intuitive voice of our heart. We become commodities, things to be exploited. Most of us are suffering from a case of mistaken identity, taking ourselves to be someone we are not, primarily as a function or a role to live up to societal expectations. The ego tries to maintain its formed identity by looking for a particular set of associations and references in order to strengthen itself. This is the ego's influence on our identity, to mold us into something we are not. It is the very program that creates self-sabotaging behaviors and old reactive patterns. Trying to make the ego the enemy or believing you can win the fight against the ego wouldn't work. The ego will just come through the back door, because as soon as you begin to fight it, you become unconscious through it. The instant you recognize the ego, it is no longer ego consciousness you are trapped in. What it is, as soon as you recognize it, is simply just an old thought pattern, an unconscious software program that runs your biological computer. It needs to be fed, strengthened, and kept alive through this symbiotic, codependent relationship with consciousness and thoughts. This energetic parasite needs your constant attention in order to thrive and survive. Do not try to fix or improve your self-image. The self that we have created in our minds does not exist. It is simply a figment of our imagination. The self that we think we are cannot become enlightened. We have to awaken from the false identity in order to realize our true eternal nature. We have not deciphered this intergenerational software virus, so we can manifest a system failure and operate outside of this global ego supremacy system. This is done to create a system reboot, to start over fresh from the beginner's mind as empty awareness. Some say that ego means edging God out. In a sense, living through ego consciousness is edging or pushing your true authentic self away. It's blocking you from your own inner light, to keep you in a dim state of consciousness, where you can only function through your self-image as opposed to the self. We have locked ourselves into believing to be the body-mind, our personality. We don't see anything beyond that. This is why we don't have full access to the reservoir of stillness, peace, silence, creativity, love. These are all on the other side of egotism. It is an act of courage to throw away your ego supremacy card, where you're no longer hiding behind the collection of concepts, beliefs, ideas, and past experiences that cannot tell us who we are. It is as futile as thinking that the map is the territory. You are not a collection of thoughts. You predate and outlive thoughts. You are that which is birthless, deathless, timeless. You don't have a color, shape, a human story. You are the unseen cosmic observer, pure, luminous consciousness, which you can house space for anything that you put attention to. To free yourself from the mind matrix is to shift your reference point from the outer perceived reality back into the inner reality. People are fooled in thinking that life happens to them. Embrace your freedom by recognizing that there are no outside forces that hold the keys to your freedom. The ego matrix was created by you as an oppositional force. It is part of your grand design. You have accepted and downloaded this program, these suggestions, in your mind to keep you in a subjugated state in order to play this binary matrix game. Everything is here appearing in your awareness. There is no one, no organization that's there to assign blame to. They are all appearances, manifestations of your subconscious created by your choosing. So take full responsibility over your creation. You are not a victim. Nothing happens to you but for you. When your egoic mind is witnessed in the detached space of your natural I am presence, it no longer has the power to distort your perceptions, steal your inner serenity, and renew itself through you. Take back your sovereign right as unconditioned consciousness.